The Bruins are not Stanley Cup contenders. We all know that. And James Hagens is not a finished product. We all know that. But here's the thing. Everybody who keeps saying, well, play in the Calder Cup playoffs and then be ready to go next year. You know what? Why are we valuing the Calder Cup playoffs over the NHL playoffs? Can anybody watching right now guarantee to me that the Boston Bruins are going to be back in the playoffs next year or the year after or the year after? Let us not forget, we talked off the top about the Florida Panthers. They will be right back in the playoffs next year when they're healthy. They are not going to miss the playoffs the second year in a row. That Florida Panthers team, in my opinion, is still the best team in the Eastern Conference and one of the best teams in the NHL, if not still the best team, if and when they're completely healthy. So does anybody listening or watching think that if they're healthy, the Florida Panthers aren't back in the playoffs next year? Because I think they are. Does anybody listening or watching think that the Tampa Bay Lightning won't be back in the playoffs next year? Because I think they will be. How about the Montreal Canadiens? One of the bright young teams in the NHL. They're in the postseason for the second straight year. Anybody think it won't be a third next year? Because I do. I think it'll be a third year next year. How about Buffalo? Buffalo, again, tons of young speed, skill, youth, guys in their prime, hitting their stride. They finally make the playoffs after a 13, 14-year drought. I think Buffalo could very well be in the playoffs again next year. What about the Toronto Maple Leafs? Could they have a bounce-back year? How about Detroit? Will they ever make the playoffs? Every blind squirrel finds a nut, right? How about the Ottawa Senators? They're right now trying to make the playoffs for the second year in a row. We think next year they'll be back in the race? Of course they will be. The Boston Bruins, listen, do not take for granted the fact that they're in the postseason this year, or at least looking like they will be.